guys, we're doing another Q&A. You guys submitted questions on Aura.tv and on the Twitter, so here we go. James Lay asked, how likely do you think that Bernie Sanders will be the next president? If you guys know anything about me at this point, you know that I do like Bernie. He's the guy that pretty much everything he says, I pretty much agree with. I don't know that we could pay for all of it, but I'm pretty much there. Like Bernie, I have a hard time making fun of him, except for the Larry David stuff, which SNL's handling pretty well. How likely? Unfortunately, I find it very hard to believe that sort of an old socialist from New Hampshire is going to be the next president. I don't necessarily see it, but don't lose hope. People get angry every time I say that. That doesn't mean that this thing is not good, because what he can do is, look, if it's going to be Hillary on the Democratic side, he can push her left or pull her left, right? And what he can also do beyond that is change the dialogue even after, whoever, even if a Republican became the next president, you know, some of the social stuff and the money in politics and the 1%, all that stuff, he's made that discussion important. And not everything always comes just because the president's the guy in charge. So try to feel good about that. At Ken Cotton III asks, where do you draw the line between feeling bad for misled college kids raised to drink regressive Kool-Aid and holding them accountable for their actions and ideas as young adults? You know, look, I think that we have to call them out on this, because if we don't, we're just actually making their safe space that much safer, right? We can't issue trigger warnings to everyone that is upset by everything, so we have to call them out. And the funny thing is, I'm not that old, but it does, when I talk about it, I do feel kind of old. But you know what? Everyone's realizing this. You can see, even in the media in general, which agrees on nothing, right? You can see that people have just had enough of this stuff. We have to protect free speech more than anything else. At Jordi Aquino said, this is more apparent in Europe. How has the liberal left turned its back on the Jewish communities that are seeing the rise of anti-Semitism? Why are so few liberals speaking out on this rising problem? You know, this is particularly interesting. When I was in Israel a couple weeks ago, one of the most disturbing things that I saw was that many of the realtors that have signs outside that are, you know, renting apartments or selling houses or whatever, they were in Hebrew and in French. Tons of them in French. So yeah, the people of France are, they're starting to deal with this, and some people are actually leaving. I don't know why. This makes no sense to me, this issue with the left. I think in a weird way, the left always wants to protect the other, but doesn't consider Jews the other anymore, or something like that. I don't know. It's actually pretty depressing and disturbing. At Stephen J.G. Hubbard, how do you think atheists are doing at creating traditions, events, ceremonies, groups, etc., to replicate the positive social value that religious congregations produce for theists? I don't know many examples of that. I think this is an interesting point, because even people that don't like religion, right, understand that there are some good things about religion, a sense of community and where you can meet people, like-minded people and all that. I don't know that many instances where people have come together in the name of atheism, but we sort of have seen it on social media, right? That's why a lot of you guys are watching this. So that's nice. But there are things like the Reason Rally, which I think I'm speaking at in a couple months, and a whole bunch of other, there are events that people get together. But in terms of, you know, traditions and things like that, it's a little bit out of the atheist sort of pocket. But if people can come together on secular values, I think that's good enough. Josh Voidick, how do we get those so heavily entrenched on the regressive left to start working with us towards true liberalism? How do we encourage people who might have changed their mind from a regressive, illiberal position to admit that they were wrong and start talking about the true dangers of bad ideologies? I wish I had the answer to this one. I think all we can keep doing is keep talking about it, right? All we can do is present our side of the argument. Now, ironically, this is what they hate the most, and that's why if you say something that they don't like, you're a bigot and a racist and a homophobe and a sexist and all of that other nonsense. But I would say that if you're not a bigot and a homophobe and a racist and a sexist, then don't be afraid of saying your opinions. If someone was to call me racist, well, I know that I'm not racist, so I don't like to be called it. It's not nice. I would prefer not to be called it. But at the end of the day, I'm not a homophobe, and I'm not against women, and I'm for equality, and I'm trying to help out the other, and I'm trying to be better myself, and that's, I think, all you can do. Jackie Lou said, would you ever consider hosting a debate with two guests on Rubin Report? So I definitely do want to do more of this. One of the shows that we've done, I had a panel. I used to do more panel stuff in general, and I would like to get people on here for a little more back and forth. I think part of the issue is that I think you guys have really liked, and I've really liked, having one-on-one focused long-form conversations because there's so little of it. And I don't really want to just talk to two people, you know, get a Democratic operative and a Republican operative and have them spout off talking points. But if you guys can think of some people that you would like to hear sort of go at it and I can kind of moderate it, I'm totally down to do that, so let me know. At Pascal Leroux, have you heard about Canada's push to legalize pot? How do you feel about that? I didn't know about that, but I feel good about it. Yeah, pot should be legal, right? People aren't smoking pot and murdering people. People aren't smoking pot and you know, breaking into banks. Weed should be legal. There's a lot of medicinal reasons, which we all know, and even beyond the medicinal reasons, even if there were no medicinal reasons, if you want to smoke a joint at the end of the day and watch The Simpsons, I may be hinting off to what I do, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And if you want to smoke pot early in the morning and take a walk in the park, nothing wrong with that either. Joe said, I would love to hear your view on U.S. economics. I, like most of your viewers, am socially liberal, but I'm also fiscally conservative. Any chance to get a libertarian on the show? So I would love to have a libertarian on the show. I consider myself partly libertarian. I've defended Rand Paul in a lot of unpopular places before. I do think that basically the government should be pretty much out of your life. And ironically, if the libertarians ever held themselves to libertarian values, I think it would do better for them. So libertarian, if you're a libertarian, you shouldn't care what someone smokes, like marijuana, and you shouldn't care what someone does in their bedroom, a gay couple, for example. So if they would live up to their own values, I think it would do them a world of good. But I do think that there are a lot of common ground between liberals and libertarians, and I hope they can come together. And finally, Michaela AMM, best episode or scene in The Golden Girls. This one is tough. This was the hardest of all questions. But my favorite episode of The Golden Girls is when when Blanche's brother, Clayton, he's gay, he comes out in an earlier episode, and it's the second episode, and now he's marrying Doug, this cop. And the two guys, you know, they're in their probably, I don't know, late 40s, early 50s or so. They're completely, there doesn't seem to be anything gay about them other than they are gay, right? And that's sort of how I've always felt. And there's a scene where Blanche realizes that her brother is going to marry this guy. Now, it's interesting. This was, I think, in 1990 or 1991 on NBC at 9 o'clock at night. And they never even mentioned that gay marriage wasn't legal. Like, they were just like, oh, they're getting gay married. And it was just a thing. That shows you how truly progressive, not regressive, the show was. And there were many other instances of this kind of thing. But anyway, Blanche is saying, well, why do you want to marry Doug? She's asking Clayton. And Clayton says, well, I'd do anything for Doug, and he'd bend over backwards for me. And that is a gay anal sex joke that they did on The Golden Girls at 9 p.m. in around 1990 on NBC, primetime television. That's how brilliant the show was, because they were dealing with a real issue, making it wickedly funny and also like kind of subversive. So that would be my favorite Golden Girls. Anyway, thank you guys for playing along. You can always use hashtag AskDaveRubin on Twitter, and you can go to Aura.tv and fill out the form right there. So thank you for playing along.